Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We want to welcome Dr. Joyce Wangarī. She's a very active member of the AA journal group, and we like her energy so much, and we felt that we could actually tap into her vast knowledge, especially in research. So over to you, Dr. Wangarī.
Thank you so much, Memory, for the kind introduction. I am among friends. I see people I know, Patience Makuyana, I see you, Elisha, Manirampa, Rose. Thank you so much for having me here today. So I'll start with a little introduction of myself, and then I still want to know a lot more about you, because today's session is about creating presentations, research presentations. That is, whether you are at the thesis stage, the final thesis stage, or at the proposal stage. I'm very curious to learn from you. Let's make this highly interactive. And so I'd like to introduce myself, and I'll also want to hear from each one of you in turn. So as I said earlier, my name is Wangarī. My website is wangarī.africa. My work is spanning 15 years in the field of psychology and 11 years in the field of research mentorship. Now, the word research mentorship is new in many parts of sub-Saharan Africa, and that is because it's not yet a distinct field that is recognized. Only recently did I get to hear about the word, but I have been doing research mentorship since I began at my university, which is United States International University Africa in Nairobi, Kenya. And that was 11 years ago, actually. I worked at the University Language and Writing Center, helping mostly non-English speaking international students on how to write in academic proper English. And since then, I have never looked back. I must say, I was really privileged to be under really good mentorship. A highlight of my career was in 2018, where I fundraised alongside my colleague who's a Kenyan, but in a different university, Daystar. So I am from USIU and she's from Daystar, and we fundraised and went to the United States. And we actually just applied to make a presentation. I'm sure you've heard of what you call academic poster presentation. So we did a student first authored poster presentation and got a global award. And the global award was not something we were expecting. It was a pleasant surprise, but that just tells you, if you harness your skills in presentation, you could actually go to very different audiences and you could become a global leader. So that I'm just telling you to encourage you that I'm just one of you. I'm a student now, just about to finish my doctorate. Exactly 1 month ago, I passed my final defense, and I think I shared it in the Author Aid Journal Club group where I met Elisha, Memory, Patience, and others here. So exactly 1 month ago, I was actually on the hot seat, like most of you will be very soon. And I presented my final thesis. That is also a presentation. I'll be happy to share the mock. Of course, the actual presentation was a closed meeting, so I'm not able to share that recording, but I can actually share with you the mock. So that's just a little bit about my work in as a psychologist, as a research mentor, and also as a presenter. And that is how I come into this space today. So I'd like to hear from you. What are you expecting on this session on research presentations? Whoever would like to start, please unmute and introduce your name, your university, your field of study, and what would you like to learn from this session on research presentations. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wangarī. We'll call you doctor so far because you've passed your defense.
Thank you for the future blessing. I hope to be on the graduation on September 25th if I submit my corrections. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, wonderful. Maybe if we can just skip the introductions in the interest of time. Perhaps you can just go on to expectations for this presentation.
Sure.
Dr. Elisha first, then Dr. Rose. Who else is here? Maybe Dr. Makuyana. In that order, please. Your expectations for this presentation. Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Elisha.
Yeah, I would like to know, because now we are writing our thesis proposal. So, and soon on the something like beginning of May, something like 3 to 7 May, we'll be defending our proposal. So we would like to know how we can prepare our thesis proposal defense. And especially I would like to be open up our school, African University, the structure of thesis proposal. We've got 3 chapters. We've got the chapter 1, introduction. We've got the chapter 2, literature review, and the chapter 3, research methodology. So is the structure is the one that I just emailed you just now. So we'd like to know, we'd like to know how to prepare. Like somebody who's been there to know exactly how to prepare and what to present. Because sometimes you'll find that we've got a lot of information.
Yes.
And then you find that you are just beating around in the bush, and then you are not, telling them what they need. So like somebody who's been there. We just want to know, for example, our thesis proposal defense is just 20 slides. So we just want to know, because they are very limited.
Yes.
And you know that this PowerPoint is about the power of the point. It's not the whole textbook that you put in a PowerPoint.
Correct.
So we have to say, in one slide, how many bullet you can put? Are there 3 or 5? And how many theme? And for example, if I'm talking about my literature review, theoretical framework, what can I hit and I convince those people? They know more.
Yes.
So that's what I'm expecting. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I got all of that, Asante. Oh, Asante is thank you in Kiswahili. Forgive me if I use Kiswahili here. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Elisha. Can we move on to Dr. Rose? Your expectations?
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I think my expectations are basically in line with what Elisha has just said, because I'm talking of maybe through the experience that I had sometime last week when we had that defense session in that colloquium, when I was actually, I think I was just halfway through or just above halfway when I was told 1 minute left. And then I started panicking. Now I didn't know what to leave behind and what to say, what was important. And then I just started, I got so unstable.
Right.
And immediately after my presentation, the first comment that I got from Prof was that, Rose, do you know that if you were more relaxed and more stable, your presentation could have been more better. So
wow.
I think it's that the relaxing part, the being stable and just organizing yourself in preparation for the defense, and maybe the way you just carry yourself around there, because I think it also has a lot that it contributes. So I think that how to apportion time to each and every section, and what's important and what's not, and just how to relax in the session.
Okay.
For me, because I'm talking from experience.
Yes, I like that. That is very well said. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. Next, Patience, welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
afternoon.
Afternoon, Dr. Makiana.
Yes.
Kindly proceed, Doc. Proceed with your objectives, your expected objectives.
I
for
would
the-
like
for-
to know how to hit it on theoretical framework.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Okay. Can I go on?
Yes, kindly proceed,
Hello.
Doc.
Yes, we can hear you.
I would like to know how maybe to present yourself and maybe what really would be very necessary, or how can you hit the nail maybe on the head when it comes to literature review and when it comes to theoretical framework
Uh-huh.
and maybe the conclusion and how maybe to adjust for the time that will be given.
Aha. Okay. Got that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So we still have a guest. Yeah, Memory, proceed.
Yes. Dr. Jokomo, please proceed.
Okay.
I think my story is almost similar to the others, just how to, I think maybe what is important is how do you respond to the input that would have been given, because you are not like defensive,
yes,
but you're also active. I think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jokomo. May we move on to Dr. Lieto?
Hi, Doc. Memory, how are you?
Hello.
Hi, Joyce. How are you?
I'm good.
Sorry, I joined in late. What was the question?
Your expectations for this presentation.
Oh, okay. I would really love to learn from experience how one can keep their composure during the presentation. And, you know, there are some questions that are quite intimidating, you know, in the process, but it's not like you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But how then do you address them, you know, in the moment without sounding as if you don't know what you're talking about? Or, yeah. And also, I think what Dr. Jokomo said, how to defend, how not to be too defensive, you know, about what you have written. Because I remember there's this Dr. Mungure. I don't know if any of you have experienced, you know, working with him on a Viva presentation. He will ask you questions to see to the extent to which you will defend, you know, what you have written. Are you confident with your work is what he pushes you towards. So how do you maintain that confidence with what you have written? At the same time, leaving room to, you know, accept the critique that comes so that you can have a much better piece of work. So pretty much that's my expectations to learn from you. Thank
Wonderful. So I hear most of you are speaking about proposal stage, the ideas around relaxation. I will not take any more people joining now because of time, but how to be stable, organized, calm, and respond to feedback is a major one. Then there's other sections that are more technical, some questions around certain sections. How do you present, for instance, the introduction, lit review, research methodology, theoretical framework, and to hit the nail on the head, as Patience said, and how to not ramble or beat around the bush, you know, as Elisha said, because you only have 20 slides and you have 20 minutes. So it's roughly a minute per slide. And so how then to adjust for time when the time becomes limited and you realize that you spent a lot more time than you had planned for. So these are all very good questions we are going to explore together. And I would like us to start with a very short video on thesis defense. I've already sent it. It's only 3 minutes. Please pay attention. It's a very, very short video. I've sent it on the chat so that you have that. It's a humorous video. but I would like you to tell me, this video just illustrates what thesis defense is and what it is not. So please pay attention. It's only 3 minutes long and it will go very fast. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, let me then play.
Yes, we can.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the thesis defense of doctoral candidate William Edwards. Mr. Edwards, you will have 20 minutes to defend your thesis, then we will open up the remainder of the hour to the panel to ask any questions. Are you ready to begin? I am. Very well, proceed.
On this, the 14th day of October, Anno Domini 2013, I, William, of the House of Edwards, do hereby swear to defend my thesis unto death.
Mr. Edwards, we should remind you that you will receive no points for style. We're primarily interested in the content of your thesis.
You need not explain your wicked designs unto me, foul creature.
Excuse me?
Well do I know of thine intent. You would destroy my thesis concerning the levels of water consumption in genetically modified plants.
Mr. Edwards, perhaps we should clarify what it means to defend your thesis. See, none of us has any malintent toward— Oh! What in the world?
Stand and face me, cowards! If you would have my thesis, then come and claim it.
What is happening? This is supposed to be an academic inquiry.
Then you may inquire at the pearly gates.
Oh, I'm so close to tenure.
You have been horribly misinformed about the nature of this meeting.
Have at thee!
We just want to know about some of the research you've done.
I spent long hours in the studies published by Hirsch and Tangleson. The research by Evans was particularly illuminating.
Yes, he had wonderful insights. But did you agree with his prognostications?
Only insofar as they related to industry. I thought that he was mistaken with regards to consumers. Sorry I'm late. Ooh. As you were.
And the bibliography?
Enough to make women swoon and grown men weep.
I'm convinced it is defended. Congratulations, Dr. Edwards.
You fought honorably. Forgive me for misjudging you. To the thesis.
Thou fool! Did you really think Stanford would just hand out a doctorate so easily? Patricia, send in the next candidate.
All right. So could somebody tell me what they got from that very short video, whose link is also on the chat? Anyone can share? I'll just take 2 shares and then we'll proceed. You've probably seen this video before. There's a lot of comedy and a lot of hilarious videos like this for PhD students. And this one is a particular character called Edward at Stanford University, but it's all just for entertainment. And this video clarifies what a thesis is not. So what did you see that was striking? What would you say is not a thesis from the video, from the short video we have watched? I'd just like to hear from 2 people and then we'll proceed. Yes, Memory?
Okay, wonderful. I learned that we should actually make our defense an academic defense and not a physical defense, and that we should not offend the panel, the defense panel.
Interesting insights. I like the second one particularly. Do not offend the panel. The idea of keeping our emotions and attitudes in check, in control, even if we're in a very high, intense spotlight, you know. Thank you. One more person?
Yes.
Yes, it's not a physical, it's a mental defense, correct?
Thank you very much, Dr. Mgadza, for your input.
Wonderful. All right. I think you all got the point of that video. And so now we are ready to define what a Viva is. So I'm just going to share some slides and we'll go right into the presentation. All right. So as I said earlier, I am a consultant psychologist and research mentor. I work in addition to author aid, where I am a research steward, doing designing and implementing research mentorship. I also work at AIDA Africa, which is based in Kenya, where I'm the lead mentor. So I really enjoy conversations like this on research, and let's grow and learn together. So today we will define what Viva Voce is, and we've just watched a video on what Viva Voce is not. That was the humorous video whose link I've just shared there. Then we'll look at a presentation checklist. Some of you have asked for specific components. We'll dive into that today. Then we will look at how to design a PowerPoint to be effective. And then some tips on remote audiovisual communication. Like today, we are all able to meet here while I'm seated in East Africa, you know, because of Zoomland. So this whole idea of online and virtual spaces. And finally, responding to panel feedback, which is a very important skill. So Viva Voce is Latin for living voice. So as we have all said in the video we just watched, oral defense is not about protecting or resisting attack. So its main aim is to exhibit mastery as an authority in your discipline. So persuasive or convincing scholarly presentation. That is what a Viva Voce is, and I'd like to emphasize that again. So its main aim is to exhibit mastery. You need to come up confidently. Remember, there are two types of defenses. Your written defense, which is the document that you've already written and been passed so that you can now have the oral defense. And then the oral defense is the second part after you've passed the written defense, or you know your manuscript has been passed. So you come here to exhibit or to confirm to us that you are the one who actually did the work, and you confidently talk as an authority with a goal to persuade and convince the panel. And the most major goal of a Viva is actually to pass. So you go for an oral defense so that you can be given a verdict. The decision you want is not to fail, obviously. It's an oral exam so that you can pass. Usually in research, we look at two main things. Convention. Did you follow rigorous scientific principles of thinking? So think about this. You have two people. One lives in the village and the other one lives in the city. Both of them know how to swim. The person who lives in the village just jumped into the river one day and somehow learned how to swim. The one who lives in the city went to a swimming pool, got a teacher, and learned the different styles of swimming and the methodology of swimming and all the safety measures that come with being in the water. All right. So which of the two would you say has the more rigorous scientific method? Is it the person in the city who got a swimming teacher in a swimming pool? Or would you say the person who's in the village who self-taught on swimming, right? So I think you know the answer to that question. And the idea of research is so that you do not speak like a pedestrian, but you speak from some evidence that you've learned different methods and you now know what you're doing. So it is not to say that the villager who learned to swim on their own is not good on their own right. No, it's not to say that. It's only to say that there is a strict scientific approach that you've got to show the panel that you followed, such that anybody anywhere in the world, in Japan, in Alaska, can replicate your study. Because you've written it clearly. And then novelty. So aside from convention, they're also looking for what's the potential value of your study? What is the new thing that it contributes? Remember, research is like sitting at a dinner table and you're speaking to different experts. And you also come up with your opinion after listening and weighing all these different groups of opinions. And a thesis, the word thesis means a claim. So what is your final claim? What are you really going to be telling us that has never been seen before, or that you would like to adapt from a different part of the world into your current setting, for instance? So we're going to be talking about communication. Parsimony is a very common principle. The principle of parsimony is used in the field of research to mean that the simplest method is always preferred. If any of you have heard of the Occam's razor, then you know that for you to actually deliver scientific knowledge, you've got to be parsimonious. That means that you use the fewest assumptions to reach that desirable methodology or the desirable, end goal of research. So being simple is quite important. I know that research has a lot of jargon words, but during your panel, you actually want to make sure that sometimes the Viva panel has members who are not from your specific field. You want to make sure that even these non-experts can follow your research. Succinct is another word that I want you to remember. The idea of being both concise or brief and comprehensive or deep. So in other words, you're going to memorize your abstract. The abstract is that paragraph at the beginning of your paper, which actually is written last, although it appears at the beginning of your paper. And the abstract summarizes everything in a concise and comprehensive manner. It does not exclude any major section. An abstract should have all the pieces. So in other words, you're going to be telling us your abstract in a more succinct manner. So being clear, confident, calm, well-paced, and timely. These are some of the goals of today's session, and we are going to delve into how can we do that. And then the idea of being gracious and grateful with feedback. So today we're not only talking about preparing for an oral defense, but also in addition, completing the oral defense. So when we get kicked out, we'll just log back in. So let's go into the checklist. Before the D-Day, you need to read your work and know it like the back of your hand or on your fingertips. You need to email both your proposal or your thesis Word document alongside with the PowerPoint slides. Remember that by this time, you already got some comments from your supervisor. You probably also had some external reviewers. You got an editor to do a plagiarism check. All those comments should be fully addressed, and it's a good practice to send this work at least 2 weeks prior. You need to give your supervisor time to read your work. So you need to consult with your supervisor about this final document. Has it followed the requirements of your university? Like I see that at your university, you have very clear guidelines. Some universities do not have clear guidelines, but I think your university has done very well. You also need to consult with your supervisor about the logistics, the day and the time and what is needed and the expectations coming from your department. Ask your supervisor what usually happens when a student needs to defend. What do you expect from me as your student in order to pass? Some supervisors will go as far as even doing a rehearsal session with you, and they will tell you the small things you need to change, like for instance, your volume, and the other big things you need to change, like rearranging your slides. And that is all very good feedback ahead of your presentation. Of course, you also need to check every panel member's expertise. Do your own research, all right? You probably know that all the lecturers in your department are likely to be on your panel, and you know what each one of them is strong or good at. Typically on a panel, people are assigned different roles. You'll see somebody talking about ethics, the other one talking about methodology. So you really want to kind of do an audience analysis and know who's going to be listening to you. And then obviously you need to do your own mocks. If you belong to author aid group, then you have a very good chance to schedule your own mock, call your colleagues, let them listen to you. And I did 2 mocks before my final presentation, and it was really instrumental in making me pass because I got asked the kinds of questions that were very useful. As we say, prior preparation produces perfect performance, but I changed the perfect. Nobody expects you to be perfect. We are all students, even if we are at PhD level. So I'll say Prior preparation produces practiced performance. And then obviously, just before the presentation, you need to make sure you have a notebook, a pen, the slides, and then the actual proposal Word document. You need to bring these things to your defense, and you always want to open up your document so that in case you have anything you need to refer to, it's just there right handy. And you can print these things. You need to print both the slides and the actual proposal so that you have them just in case of anything on the D-Day. So up to there, let me see if we have any chats, questions or comments. So I see no questions so far, so that is good. Zoom just gave me a note. Okay, so on the D-Day, there are 3 sections in any presentation, whether it's for your final thesis proposal. We have introduction and the main body and the conclusion. And there is another document I'd like us to look at now. Let me see if I can locate it. We'll also talk about body language, use of visual aids, and oh, that was a repetition right there. So I'd like us to look at this document, which is also in the chat. So let me see if I can screen share it as well, which is a breakdown on what you need for each section of your presentation. So this is what we call the presentation checklist. It's designed by the Writing Center at which university again was it? I think it's Texas University, yes. So this checklist is designed to help evaluate your presentation skills per section. So we always start with the topic. That topic is represented by a title. Remember, topic and title are not the same thing. Topic is the general topic area, and your title is the heading. If you would think of your presentation as a skeleton, so then the title would be the head, all right? So the topic, is this appropriate for your audience? Is it relevant to their needs and interests and occasion, you know? And then we could also ask, is it, then we go to introduction. So after the title slide, of course, your title slide has not only the title, but your name. And it's always good to acknowledge your supervisors. So you put also your supervisors' names. Then we go to introduction section. Does your introduction grab attention of your audience? Does it get their attention? Does it clearly identify the topic? Does it establish the speaker's credibility, your credibility? Does it include a clear and concise thesis statement? So remember, the reason why even in an abstract we use keywords is that you actually need to feature some keywords throughout your presentation. Some students make the mistake of changing over the keywords, and then we're not too sure what you're talking about. Remember, scientific work is precise. So we've got to have it clear and concise. If you remember what we said, a thesis is a claim. So it's your main argument. And a hypothesis, hypo means under, you know, it is the claim you stand under. So it's, your hypothesis is your is what you set forth to test whether it will be rejected or accepted, right? And so your introduction should preview the main points. The idea here is not to put everything from your document onto the slides, but to walk around as if you have a sieve. Here in Kenya, we drink tea and we call tea chai. Chai is now a Kiswahili word which has made its foray into English language. And when we make tea, we actually use tea leaves and we boil it. But after a while, you need to sieve out the tea leaves and just drink the tea. And so the work of you as a presenter is to really sieve the main points always. Then we go to the main body. Are the points clear? Are they logically ordered? Are they well supported with rich detail? Are all the sources documented with the appropriate citation? And does each point have good transition? So the idea of flow. There are about 9 elements of academic writing. I don't have time to go into all of that, but the idea of logically ordered. That's all pointing to flow. Flow is very important. And then finally, the conclusion of your presentation, you got to restate the thesis. At the end, review the main points, bring closure in a memorable way, and give the audience something to do or think about, the clarion call or the action point. So I said I'll also talk about body language and visual aids. Eye contact is maintained all the time. In this case, I am looking at a prompter. It's either a red or a white prompter on my screen, and I'm trying to look at it as much as possible because my body language and my gestures are exuding confidence. My facial expressions need to be appropriate to the audience and greatly enhancing the message, all right? So you shouldn't show obvious signs of nervousness now. The thing is that your audience is very compassionate. They understand you are in an exam situation, and sometimes you may show signs of nervousness. A good idea is to just maybe say, I'm feeling a little nervous, but I'll be okay. And your audience will be more than compassionate to understand that. But if you're conversational and you interact with your audience, then over time, you'll find that the nervousness will decrease. The reason being, you've also practiced, you know what you're saying. Therefore, one way to beat anxiety is to prepare, to be well prepared. We all know this. We are all stellar students. We are all excellent students. To have reached this point in your life, remember you've gone through so many teachers and so many years of learning. So you're doing well. So if you keep that in mind, you will be okay. Visual aids have to be integrated smoothly and skillfully. They need to enhance their presentation by reinforcing and extending the main points. They need to be tastefully designed. So generously use all of the tables, figures, charts that are in your main document, especially when you come to the final thesis where you're presenting your results. And then your delivery should be clear and distinct and pronouncing the words while also staying within the allotted time. So those are just some general tips. And I think at this time now we can delve into more of the details, section by section, very briefly, is to say that you need to have someone asked me about it was lit review. How do you even present that? Remember, you're gonna bring an abridged version, only the important points where the critical analysis is and where the gaps are being identified. So we talk about the introduction piece really being an abridged version, combining both your background and some lit review, all right? So is your research topic researchable? Is your lit review critical enough? Is your problem compelling? All right, very critical. Are your objectives SMART? If you remember SMART goals, we always talk about specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Your objectives have to be measurable above all, especially if you're doing a quantitative study. And if you're doing a qualitative study, you might also have questions. So are your questions open-ended? Then when we go to theoretical framework, we are asking, is it relevant? So remember I mentioned the skeleton. So remembering that your whole topic should flow from beginning to end is that while the title is the head, the objectives is the rest of the spine going all the way down, and everything has got to be aligned. So your theoretical framework is being judged as either being relevant or irrelevant to your topic. And then your conceptual framework diagram, it needs to be aligned to the objectives. And then does your research design help to answer the questions? So now we've moved into chapter 3. You look at the sampling design. Does it fit the purpose? Is your instrument valid, reliable? Okay, so instrumentation is so important. Some students think, oh, I don't need to mention the tools I'll use. Now, the tools you use give us the scales of measurement. So we want to know, is this a nominal scale? Is this an ordinal scale? Those are important because then we get to judge whether it's truly a quantitative study or a qualitative study. Remember, your tools could either be the ones you've designed on your own, and you just need to state that on the slide, or the ones that you adapt from previous studies. And then overall, is is there feasibility? Does this study have potential value? Is it viable? Is it feasible? You know, so those are some of the questions at the back of your panel's mind. And then general organization, is it logically flowing? So remember, for your final thesis, you will modify this list that is on the left here on the right, because you've got to dwell much more on the results or the findings, on the discussion, significance, which is like, I would say, the icing on the cake. Significance is about what, therefore, is the impact, contribution, implication, and application of your study. So are the recommendations aligned? You know, if you say your study came up with this new theory, and that's the implication, is that aligned to what actually you found in the field? All right. So these are some of the sections that you cannot miss in a proposal. Remember, they're not linear. These components are not, they don't have to be followed in that exact order. So a few more tips. Gold standard for most presentations is 15 minutes. So you have about 15 slides. I see in your university, you're given up to 20 minutes. But sometimes universities can decide, oh, people came late and we've had such electricity problems or internet problems. So they can reduce the time on the spot. During the day I presented, the time was reduced by 5 minutes. So whatever you had worked with, if you had worked with 20 minutes, if you are given 15 minutes, you should still be able to deliver because you've rehearsed it over and over again. Remember, each slide should have only 3 to 5 bullet points. You should not have more than 7 lines in any slide, and not more than 7 words per line. Even on this slide, there's too many words. So use a clear font, minimum font size of 28, and the title should be a little bit bigger, like at 44, so that it's visible. Remember that you might be doing your presentation virtually or in a room. If you're in a room, you have to make sure the lighting is good and there's good contrast between the words on your PowerPoint and the background of the PowerPoint. Like you can see in my case, I hope you can all read the words really clearly. So you want to do that so that even if the lighting is poor, people can actually see what you're trying to show them. And then I talked about illustrations before. Some things to avoid is all these slide transitions. Just be conservative and professional. Like in the case of my slides, I used the slides, I use the colors of my university, which is blue and yellow, and I try to make it very professional. I'll also share with you my actual mock. For those of you who've not watched it, you can always watch it on your own and give me your comments. And then do not read word for word. A lot of students make that mistake. It sounds scripted. You need to be more natural. You need to have memorized, you know, your work. So, for audio-visual communication, a few extra tips. Always have internet backup. You always want to have, you know, just know how you're going to do that. For my presentation, which was exactly a month ago, I decided to go to school and we had to write many emails for me to be allowed in school because currently there's no one being allowed on campus. And so they arranged an office for me. It was cleaned because it had been dusty. No one had been there for a while. I had an extra, you know, battery. I had a place to charge, you know, my devices. I made sure I carried an extension cable so that I can connect to the wall socket. I had a flash drive and printouts for backup just in case. And I had emailed my work to my supervisors. And I was sitting in a really quiet place, so there were no distractions, no people walking in and out. Those are obvious things. But you want to arrive 15 minutes early so that you can ask, you need to request if you can test, you know, your sound so that people can hear you. Always have water, but you want to carry a closed cup like this one. You don't want a cup that you can spill over onto your devices. You have to be very careful with these technologies nowadays. And then be comfortable. Don't wear your newest suit on that day because it's your big day. Just wear the clothes you're used to wearing so that you can fit comfortably and, and be okay. And it's always good practice to mention and thank your supervisors, each one of them as you begin. Greet people, you know. Many people advise that you dress in a solid color. you know. But this will be, you know the norms of your university and what looks official. So the idea is to look official. Lastly, let me talk about responding to panel feedback. So this is the whole idea about being given or receiving feedback. First thing you need to know, it is not personal. I think in sub-Saharan Africa, there has been a culture throughout the education system for people to act tough and, you know, to give tough comments as a way to show that there's learning going on, you know. Throughout school, like when I was young, we were beaten a lot. We've been shipped and slapped and, you know, and that has been a culture, I think, in academia that has stayed long, quite longer than it should, whereby even in some panels, sometimes you find that even after a student has left the panel so that the panel is left to make the decision, you find that sometimes a department can ask one of the professors, one of the lecturers to apologize because, you know, they might be speaking in an offhanded way. So for you as a student, the first thing you need to know, it is not personal. So separate your person from the performance. So you are a person and your worth is not dependent on the comments you're given. And so if you have any misdirected toughness, it could be coming from anywhere. Maybe some biases with the panel, or there's something that the whole panel just, you know, may not be fully briefed on, and therefore it's not personal. So if you understand that, then you will have a lot of graciousness, as we said in the beginning, a lot of gratitude, even as you receive the panel. And there are usually 3 types of questions that you will either know or not know. There are 2 things. You either know the answer or you don't know the answer. And the 3 types of questions, the first one is informational. Sometimes panel just is trying to probe in a very gentle and friendly way for more information. So if you do not know the answer, you just need to say, I'll look into that. And then there are some questions which are hypothetical or reflective questions, the what if question. So that question, you will use your judgment and your wisdom to know that you're not being asked to say the answer immediately. You're being asked to go think about it. All right. And so those kinds of questions will be very clear to you. And sometimes the panel moderator, who is typically one faculty who is also hosting the webinar, they'll tell you, go think about what if this and this scenario was there. Now, remember, you are on stage. And if somebody asks some question that is quite complex and deep, remember that you don't have to feel pressurized to always come up with the answer, you know, to that particular question. So you always want to say, and in a very humble and respectful way, thank you so much for all your questions. I will look into them. But if you think you actually have an answer, you want to show that you're tying the different pieces of comments you're being given. So you want to say, thank you, Prof. So-and-so said this, and Prof. So-and-so says this. And so I see how that could be, but I could also be this. So remember, you're not a doormat. You're not here to just accept everything just because, you know, it's the panel which has said that, but you're also not here to defend and be offensive, all right? But you can use your skills of synthesis and you can reflect back what the question is about, and you can say, you're not sure, you look into it. And that is a very good way of answering. And lastly, you might encounter this last type of questions, which is challenging questions or accusatory questions. When the panel is looking for a loophole, for something you should have included that you did not include, for something that's really, really irking them, and they're really getting angry. And you can tell, even as they are speaking, you can feel the temperature in the room going up. So what you want to do in that case, just be really, really, really calm. And, you know, this is where you demonstrate your leadership skills. And this is where you actually just stay in the moment, right? And after the whole feedback is there or the question is there, then you can choose whether to answer it in a more specific way or a more general or blanket way. So statistically, if you do these 2 things, consult with your lecturer, and if you practice, statistically, you will pass. If you use the Pareto principle, which says 80-20 rule, I don't know if any of you have heard of Pareto principle, is that most likely what is likely to go wrong will not go wrong. So you'll be on the 80% side. If you do everything according to plan, remember by this time, I said that you've passed your written defense so that you are enlisted onto the oral defense. So if you do everything according to, the preparations that you're supposed to put in place, then you'll be just fine. Most likely you will pass. So the idea of a defense is to persuade and convince the panel to give you this verdict, which is to pass you. You're here to pass, you're not here to fail. And therefore, these are just some of the tips I thought to share. And I think at this time, I can take questions. Thank you very much.
Joyce, thank you so much for the presentation. More and more, I'm feeling geared towards it and feeling a bit confident, and thank you so much for sharing that you had time to do some mock presentations. I also wanted to ask, what is the level of engagement, or what strategy did you use with your supervisors, such that at least all of you are on the same page, and whilst carrying out your defense,
Right.
what is it what gave you that confidence? What were you anchored on, such that one can prepare for that?
Right. Thank you so much for that question. So in my case, I had two supervisors because the Commission for University Education in Kenya requires a minimum of 2 supervisors for each doctorate student and a maximum of 3. But my university could not get more than 2, so we just got 2 each. Luckily, in my university, because I'm in a private university, we had the privilege of even selecting our preferences, although all supervisors had to be assigned. So for me, I've had quite a journey with my supervisors. There were certain places where they were philosophically not agreeing, but because they were working collaboratively as a team, I kept consulting each one of them. At some point, I consulted each one of them separately, because there were some points of my argument they philosophically disagreed. So that's a very interesting scenario a student finds yourself in. It is the same as being a child where your father tells you one thing and your mother tells you another, and as a child, you can get confused. But the idea was to have both supervisors in the same meeting with me. And when I made that request, they agreed, and we sorted, or we thrashed out, or we aligned ourselves to what is the most important agreement at hand. Remember, as a committee, the 2 supervisors have to append their signatures on the document of the student. And so for my presentation, they were particularly useful because they looked at my slides, they had me even rehearse with them. They got me to change things even up to the last minute, which was really useful. Like I feel like this is not the typical experience for most students. Most students will have, to do a lot of the work on their own, which should not be the case. But the supervisors only are mostly interested in the outcome, not the process. So, which is why I think we now have a gap in research mentorship. Research mentorship fills the gap. A lot of universities teach research and they have all these structures for their students to get research, but sometimes you may need a mentor who can walk with you step by step. And so I also went outside my university. I went outside my department. I was quite bold and courageous. I did not sit only with the comments from my supervisor. I had people from far and wide. I had 2 mocks on Zoom. I listened to so many YouTube videos on actual defenses, and also YouTube tutorials. Like I shared a link to a tutorial that can help you make a PowerPoint. It's a PowerPoint template, and it even tells you the difference between a master's template and a doctorate template for your for your defense and all these different levels, and all this information is online. I don't think any of us can say we are short of information. If you are able to be online, you can do a lot of self-teaching, and you can do what we call self-directed learning. But the biggest challenge I see that students face is what we call doctorateness. So a lot of students are still in a mindset that you need to be in class and you need the lecturer to tell you what to do. But at this stage, it's actually not like that. As we all may have noticed, it's really up to us now. We really are at the forefront of creating what we need. So in other words, you are at the driver's seat, and everybody else is what you call a core pilot or a core driver. So as a student, you've got to call the shots. And when something is not working, you can use project management skills. All your leadership skills will come in handy. A lot of humility, because it's also a process that humbles us. And you want to do all these things so that you stay on task and not be distracted. There's so many things that went on, like in my doctorate journey. My doctorate journey took 8 years, while my doctorate is designed to be for 5 years. So, and I took extra time, which is very typical, because doctorate students are usually at the helm of their careers. There's a lot more going on. We're in a pandemic, and the idea is to have spaces like, I really like that you people have come together and you're getting serious on supporting each other, because then at some point you realize you're not just schoolmates, you're going to be colleagues for the rest of your lives. And so I think this is a really good initiative you also have. And I would encourage all students, including my own schoolmates, to do this, to follow your example as to what you're doing here in this group today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce.
Hello, Wangarī.
Hello.
Yeah, myself is about a request. First of all, thank you very much for this fruitful and powerful presentation. So the request, I'll say, like somebody that you have got experience. I know you are somebody that you are busy, very busy. But I was saying, this request is not this month or next month. But I'm saying, is it okay? Like you can give us some other time in the future, so that we come up with our papers, so that we prepare as a defense, like somebody who have been there. And then, first of all, you look at our papers, you see if it's a proposal or is a thesis, is it okay? And then kind of looking at our papers and advising, they say, no, this one is something like this one. I don't know. Is it okay if you can share us with next time?
Yeah, thank you so much for that invitation. I'll be honored to do that. I must start by saying I nowadays prefer not to use the word busy, because we are all able to create time. I mean, each one of you had many things you could be doing on such an evening as this, but you chose to be here. So one thing I can advise you to do also is to really get organized around your different specializations. So in research mentorship, we know that you can have either a generalist or a specialist. And so I've done both. I have mentored students as a generalist. And if I'm not in your area, I'll say at the beginning, I'm not an expert in peace and conflict and all those different topics. I am a psychologist. I'll say that at the beginning. And so you always want, as the mentees, to find mentors who will be available and interested and also capable for the different technical areas. So it doesn't just stop with finding one person. You might want to create a program where you call people according to different specializations. I'm also very happy to come in as a generalist in that area of writing. I'm very, very good in that. And helping people with their presentations. I do that on a daily basis in AIDA Africa, so I'll be happy to do that. And I think the idea, you also want to create a timetable so that you have variety and you're listening from different people. Research is such a wide field. And because you are all very highly motivated and you're such good students, you can actually get the kind of input you need at a certain point in time. If you can just define your goals really well, you could literally go online nowadays on LinkedIn and meet a total complete stranger, introduce yourself, and invite them. Most scholars are very happy to give their time. It is something that we do in the scientific community to build each other, because the same way that here talking to you doesn't mean I know everything, is the same way other people have built into my life. And, you know, we talk about Ubuntu, the philosophy of, you know, I am because we are. So the same way I've listened to so many talks and I keep learning, and every day I keep improving. One of the things, like in my own final presentation, my lecturer said I had too many slides, but I was very, very fortunate. I had practiced enough. I had more than 20 slides, but most of them had good graphics, so I did not remove them. What I did is I kind of broke the rules properly so that I went a bit smoother and faster, but I still kept time and I still delivered the main points. And some of the slides, I did not dwell on them even a minute, like references or the last slide that says thank you, you know. So, you know, you'll always find when you know the rules very well, at least you can break them knowing what you're doing. But I was cut off at the exact time the panel had given me, which was 15 minutes. And I did a good job. I still delivered. So, so you want to fashion for yourself and keep creating the conversations you need as you go along. I'll be happy to have a side conversation with you about the little I can contribute, and then also to link you with whoever else might be relevant for the different, you know, needs that you may have as a group. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. So let's make it practical. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share your email. I'm going to share your email, Wangarī, so that everybody that is interested, he will send you his or her thesis proposal. And then later
I would love that.
Yeah, and then later on, you look at it and then you peer review, and then you give us time, and then you say that I have a look at this paper, so and so, can we meet so that we discuss about this paper or put input to each and every Yeah, so that it
I would say both, send both the proposal and the slides. I'll be more keen on helping you fashion your presentation. I may or may not promise to be keen on the main document, but I'll need to look at it. But because today's presentation was on research presentations, I'll be dwelling more on the slides, and you can have, you know, your supervisor review the proposal for the content. I'll look at mostly the style and the format and, you know, overall presentation.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you very much. So now we are going to present our defense is on the 3 and the 7 May.
Okay, all the best.
Yeah, so we'd like if you can have another, I know you are busy, to find even some other 40 minutes before 3 and the 7 May.
Right. Maybe I may not promise a session. What I can promise, because you're talking about 2 weeks from now, and I know all of you may or may not have your slides ready. What I can promise for sure is to look in the email and read the slides, and also read your proposals and give you feedback. I may or may not have time in the next 2 weeks to listen to each one of you for 20 minutes. But you amongst yourselves may have that time. You may each have 20 minutes. In such a Zoom call as 40 minutes, you can have 2 presentations, and you have the power to give each other feedback, you know? So I'd highly recommend you email me. I can do the email on the slides especially, and then I may or may not, I'll need to check my schedule. As the days go, it's getting tighter, but let's keep talking on that live presentation bit, but I can promise right here about checking your emailed slides. That one I can promise. So
thank you very much.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wangarī. If I may just take this opportunity to officially thank you on behalf of the group, the PhD class of 2018 at Africa University. Thank you for always availing yourself just to assist us through this journey, this PhD journey. It is not as scary as it was maybe before we had this meeting with you. And thank you also to Dr. Elisha, who's always taking it upon himself to pull us up, even when we feel like we are actually tiring on the journey. Thank you so much, doctors, for attending this workshop, this presentation, and we wish everybody well as we continue with our journey. A very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.